Ole Miss has cut out the Kiffin cancer and has named Pete Golding their permanent head coach. We are so freaking back.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're going to talk about how Keith Carter was an absolute gangster during this whole horrible situation that Ole Miss has been put through, and now Ole Miss is ready to start rolling with Pete Golding as its head coach. They are galvanized. We'll talk about assistants a little bit. We'll talk about all of that stuff. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen. And please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. And check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is available for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Really interesting stuff. And this is going to be a little bit of a stream of consciousness podcast, okay? So just bear with me with everything that's going on, because I will talk about how I went through the emotions that I was feeling, what Lane Kiffin tried to do to the university that I loved out of pettiness and out of upset that he put himself in a weird situation. We will talk about Pete Golding and this Ole Miss team positioned to make a run in the college football playoff. We're going to talk about that as well. We'll talk about the rumors of the assistants, to where other than Chris Kiffin, there's no real on-the-field assistant that is going with Lane Kiffin. There's rumors that Charlie Weiss Jr. and George McDonald could end up there. I think LSU is talking about that, but we'll talk about that and go over that as well. So it's interesting. So let's, I guess, start with the Oklahoma game whenever the noise happened. And Lane Kiffin made it almost impossible to enjoy an 11-1 season and this November to remember. That we talked about going into this November, that this is going to be the November that you talk about for the entirety of your life. This will be the November that you tell your grandkids about. And Lane Kiffin made this November about him. He became an absolute cancer to the whole organization and made everything about him. It was textbook narcissist behavior, all of that stuff. But as Ole Miss continued to string together wins, and it became apparent that Ole Miss was going to be a team that was competing for the college football playoff, Lane Kiffin, what is he going to do? He wanted to coach that game. It would be the pinnacle of his entire career. And if he is a narcissist, which he is, you want the attention that comes with it. And what would be better than going to LSU, getting all of the attention and coaching that game, and having a 4-hour recruiting commercial about LSU right before the transfer portal window opened? That'd be really cool. That would be really fun. You can see why Lane Kiffin would be all about doing that for Lane Kiffin. But the downside of that is that would be detrimental to Ole Miss in every way. You can't allow a school other than Ole Miss to benefit off of Ole Miss making the playoff, and that's what would have happened. You can't allow a coach of one of your rivals to be around your team, recruiting them each and every single day, because we saw today, just one day, like 3 hours, what it would have looked like every minute of every day during those 30 days. Getting rid of Kiffin was the absolute right move to prevent what was going on. If he was going to LSU, he chose to go to LSU. He chose to quit on his team. He chose to abandon his team. Okay? So that's where we stand about that. And if he wants to go to LSU, let him go to LSU. Is fine. We're not going to talk about him much more. We will talk about him a little bit more over the course of the week, but not too much more. But unbelievably toxic, and all of the stuff, the Al Davis stuff, the Tennessee stuff, the USC stuff, it all just appeared, and Ole Miss got bit by it. But Keith Carter was playing a little bit of four-dimensional chess himself as it turns out. We mentioned all during this podcast that Keith Carter was a bit of a gangster during this whole process, doing exactly what it seemed he needed to do with all of the people that was in his ear, all of these talented people that we put together for different purposes, advising Keith. Ole Miss had a plan for how to deal with this, because make no mistake, once Lane Kiffin really realized that he wasn't going to coach the college football playoff, it was his one and only goal to make sure there was no playoff to worry about. He wanted to hurt Ole Miss at a certain level that the committee dropped Ole Miss out of the playoff. They Jordan Travis them. We talked about that going on and that being a possibility. That was the goal. And he was public about it. He wanted everybody to know that Ole Miss was doing this to him. He was the victim. He was hurt. The only people that are on his side right now are LSU fans and the people that are attached to his agency, CAA, the Jimmy Sexton people, Kirk Herbstreit, Nick Saban, all of those guys. So Keith Carter needed to understand what was happening, first of all, because you can't defend off anything unless you truly understand what's happening and how this person was just in full burn it to the ground mode to Ole Miss. And Keith Carter was quietly behind the scenes, piecing things together. I talked with boosters and contacts going together, people on the phone over the course of multiple days, trying to figure out a way forward and to put Ole Miss in the best possible light to succeed in the college football playoff and beyond. Keith Carter was an absolute gangster during all of this. He was extremely cutthroat. He made it be known that Lane Kiffin was not going to coach the playoff, which started this whole thing, which allowed all of this stuff to get out of control and to come out into the open without Ole Miss being the bad guy. Ole Miss basically got to wear the victim role and take it away from Lane Kiffin. Keith Carter also realized that the number one concern for him right now is protecting his college football playoff team. And the way that you do that is by keeping the team intact. There were rumors that people were approaching players, paying them to potentially opt out. I mean, this is the weird rumors that we heard this morning, that Lane Kiffin put an ultimatum on his offensive staff, which I thought he was against ultimatums, if we're going to be honest about it. But he put an ultimatum on his staff to where you can either get on the plane when we leave or you will not have a job at LSU. Literally threatened his assistant coach's livelihood to demand loyalty. So his petty need to hurt Ole Miss would continue. Honestly, him going to LSU is the perfect thing for him, because if you're going to want to hurt Ole Miss, that's one of the two places to go. Keith Carter noticed all of this going on, all the people talking about it, the rumors that were in the air, all of that stuff, and started formulating a plan. Part one was we didn't need a coaching search because the uncertainty was going to count against Ole Miss, and it was going to be used against Ole Miss. So Keith Carter said, okay, we have a guy right now that has the utmost respect of the team, who kind of is the figurehead downstairs in the meeting rooms as Pete Golding. And if you have that, and he has the support of the fan base, why wasn't he just a coach in waiting all along? So they handed the permanent gig over to Pete Golding. Boom. He's going to be the next head coach for Ole Miss. You heard about John Sumrall. You heard about Alex Glesh. This is Pete Golding. Same thing. He got named as the head coach of Ole Miss. Not interim head coach, head coach. Next of all was the next part of the plan by Lane Kiffin to hurt Ole Miss, was to eliminate the offensive staff to where the committee for the college football playoff had to justify, well, are we going to let this team in when there's no offensive coaches? This might not be the team that went 11-1. This might not be the team that beat Georgia. a year ago. This might not be the team that beat Oklahoma this year. Might not be the team that beat LSU. We can't let them in. So the next thing that Keith Carter and the stakeholders around Ole Miss started to do was working to retain the staff, to kind of overdo that ultimatum that Lane Kiffin put on there. Multiple people reported that. And if you go by, I guess it was Neil McCready, maybe it was him. I saw it a couple other places. The only coaches that are for sure going to Louisiana right now with Lane Kiffin is Chris Kiffin, and then you have Billy Glasscock and the strength and conditioning coach, Savage. The only ones for sure. There's two names in the air in George McDonald, the wide receivers coach, and Charlie Weiss Jr., the offensive coordinator. But if you go look on the Ole Miss side, they're not going down. They're not, at least not going down right now. And the way Ole Miss was able to do this, the way that Keith Carter was able to do this, according to all of those names that we talked about before, McCready, Parham, Ben Garrett, all of the news gatherers, Michael Katz around the Ole Miss orbit, is by offering twice of the salary of what they were getting. That's how they overcame this ultimatum for whatever reason. So at least for this playoff run, they will have their salaries doubled, essentially. And Ole Miss has essentially committed to raise the assistant salary pool anyway. So when we come back, we are going to continue to talk about all of this. And it's increasingly interesting. Pete Golding coming in, we will tell you exactly why I'm excited about this move and why the team should be excited about this move. We'll talk about that in just a second. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. You know, the World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994 with 48 teams for the first time ever. It's going to be a massive tournament. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why Game Time and their app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when the great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands, and it makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, the layout makes it so simple to scroll through the matchups and compare great seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keep all of this for free. Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's coming in about a week, if we're going to be honest about it, so stick around for that. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network, I think in the world, but at least in America. So thank you very much for that. That is all on you. All right. So the team, somebody had a camera rolling or something. It's on Twitter, the team meeting for that. And there was a raucous applause when Pete Golding was named as the newest head coach for Ole Miss. He's the guy that I think the players really relate to because he's the guy that's around. He's the highest ranking officer that is walking around the facility and he can be seen. Lane didn't do that. Lane didn't know any of the players' names unless they were good, unless they could help him. And unless he's taking pictures with Jackson Dart outside of a Bentley, he just didn't. He was kind of a figurehead that could do some interesting stuff savant-wise offensively. He's a really good coach. Not saying he's a bad coach. Not saying he won't be missed. I am saying that a normal football team could be returning to Ole Miss. And that's important. And Pete, do this favor for me. Just please do this favor. Bring back the road jerseys with the red stripes and numbers. Please. Just once, please. I like the powder blue road jerseys. Those are awesome. Great. Bring back the traditionals as well. Heck, add a navy blue one in there while we're talking about it. So Pete's down on the floor. He's dealing with the players. He probably has the players' ear more than most of the people in that building. He's a player's coach. He's a smart guy. He's fun to talk to. You listen to him for 3 minutes, you get the recruiting pitch. You get why he has success. And Pete came in there and said, hey, you guys are the reason we're in this position. These are great assistant coaches. It's my job to make sure they stay. All of the stuff that you've heard in new coaches meetings all the time. It is just the way it is. And the one thing you noticed is when he was talking, it was quiet. There wasn't the mumbling of people like not paying attention. That was a team that was locked in. You couldn't see anything, but you could hear it, and it was quiet. There wasn't mumbling or anything like to where ambient noise kind of raises up just a little bit. No, they were listening to Pete Golding and every one of his words. So I do think he has the respect of the locker room. Now, the question is going to be, if this Charlie Weiss stuff, and he gets there, he appears for Ole Miss in the playoff and all that, is it going to look the same as it did with Lane Kiffin? Because we've all heard stories on the Trinidad Chambliss stuff. And we're still waiting to hear from Trinidad Chambliss for what it's worth. Now, technically, this is Trinidad's senior year, so opting out of the playoffs or something like that, some kind of weird thing, it's not really an option because if you opt out and don't get the waiver, your career's done. So he's likely going to play the game, and it's probably not even a doubt that he would. But I just thought I'd say that because people have been texting me over and over about that. So Pete Golding, in my opinion, is the man for the job. Pete Golding is somebody that can galvanize this team and have them ready for a home game in 3 weeks, where the goal is going 1-0, whether it's against Miami or Tulane or whoever's in that game. You need to win that game. And if you win it, you can move on to the Sugar Bowl or the Orange Bowl and play in Indiana or Georgia or somebody else, and you can actually go on a run. It's kind of weird that the first head coaching game he's ever going to have will be in a playoff situation, but he does have Joe Judge, who has worn the headset in the NFL before. There's people that he can lean on. There have been people that have been head coaches that are in his orbit currently. Is there going to be growing pains? Yes, absolutely. Is there going to be going forward on 4th and 12 from your own 25 up by 10 points on the road? No, that's probably not going to happen. There's not an analytical world in the world that justifies that, but you were told that there was. So when we come back, we're going to get into the chat room for about 10 minutes, okay? Should be a lot of fun to what's going on. We'll take some questions. We'll talk about it, have a little bit of group therapy because today's been a day. Today has absolutely been a day. And we'll have a little bit of group therapy. And we'll get ready, and I'll end this live stream and get ready for tomorrow morning's show that I still have to film and put together and all of that. Today's been a day. That's all I'm saying. So when we come back, we're going to take your questions and concerns. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, so stick around. You know, the holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to your door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. The quality is exactly what you would hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking a little bit easier. Honestly, it's the kind of gift that brings people together. And if you don't need to guess anyone's side, that's pretty much a good thing too. So save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off on select favorites during their cyber sale. And from us, you can get an additional $35 off by using the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See the site for details. All right, let's go in there and get a little bit of work on the comment section. Thank you very much for sticking around. There's way too many comments in this list. I understand that. If I don't get there, I apologize. But let's go through and look just a little bit of what is going on right now. Pretty good day for Ole Miss. Now, I'm assuming there's going to be a decent number of trolls in the comments, so bear with us. Now, William Irvin says, yeah, he definitely just added gas to the rivalry. Yes, can you imagine how intense that LSU game is going to be next year? On LSU's schedule, they have road games at Tennessee, which we all know about Tennessee, and he has to come to Oxford as well. An absolutely fantastic day. And if you're not Ben Garrett, okay, and for those who don't know, Lane Kiffin went viral on social media picking on Ben Garrett over his making a hoe into a housewife quote from a rap song that he did on a podcast. If Ben Garrett is not making t-shirts about hoes essentially for that game, he's doing it wrong. Seriously, we'll see what's happening. All right. Bombastic says, honestly feels better being an Ole Miss friend today. Yes, definitely. Absolutely. Stumpiana says, GTH LSU Golden Era is here. Hotty Toddy from Columbia, Mississippi. Absolutely. Doobie Snacks. Very good. Creative name. Left a playoff team for a failing LSU team. Sorry, but I hope he fails his rear end off and y'all get someone better because he will do it to you as well. Jason Wester says, I could not be happier than he's gone. And people that's just tuning into this and not really sure why that's happened, when you say Ole Miss has won 10 games each of the last 3 years, why are you happy to see him go? Because he's emotionally terrorized Ole Miss's fan base every chance he could get. When Ole Miss defeated Florida, was it 3 weeks ago or something like that? 68,138 in the stands. One of the greatest atmospheres that has ever happened in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Got a layup question in the post-game press conference. That was some atmosphere. That was amazing, right? His answer was, yeah, but did you see the Citadel game? And at that point right there, you knew he was A, gone, and B, just like, that's stupid. You can't do stuff like that. Have there been any confirmations on the staff that's following him? On the Ole Miss side, they're saying that the only person that leaving is Chris Kiffin, Billy Glasscock, and Savage, the strength and conditioning coach. LSU fans are saying Charlie Weiss Jr. and George McDonald. I do not know about confirmation on that. I do not think that Charlie Weiss Jr. is going until after the playoffs, or George McDonald. I think they're sticking around. Ole Miss got a nice pay bump right now. Alan Hawkins, you handled this last month amazingly well, but your voice was a little quiet since the Egg Bowl. Fill us in. It's not that it was quiet. It was just that there was one live stream at noon today. I was trying to take a break because I knew this week was going to be terrible. So you were going to do the reaction show on Friday after the game, and you knew that Saturday was going to be bad and Sunday was going to be bad. And I was planning on doing a live stream on Saturday if this press conference and if this announcement happened. Essentially, it did not. And I was like, I'm not going on there for no reason. That's just inviting the trolls to come in. And I was like, I'll wait until Sunday. And we've done the reaction roundtable a little bit earlier on today, and we're doing this podcast right now. And tonight I'll record tomorrow morning's episode. So today's going to be pretty busy. It wasn't me being intentionally quiet. It was me taking a day off, essentially, because I knew what was coming, if that makes sense. So William Ball says, what do you think about Pete Golding named head coach from Smyrna, Tennessee? Smyrna, Tennessee did some time there. I like Pete Golding. He has the locker room. He's an extremely bright guy. You can listen to him for hours. He's an excellent recruiter. And most importantly, and nobody's going to talk about this, Pete Golding will keep the player procurement system intact. The player personnel department is going to keep humming because of Pete Golding. And I guess it was 2 weeks ago, I did a show talking about the transition from Nick Saban to Les Miles and how they were able to make that work. And it was because they kept the player procurement system intact. Ole Miss is going to do that. Pete Golding's a bright guy, a really bright guy. And I expect, honestly, if we're going to be completely real, I expect Ron Roberts to probably show up. That's just my opinion. But I expect Ron Roberts because their defense is pretty similar. They're really good coordinators, but I expect him and Brian Brown to be co-coordinators. That's going to be an unbelievable staff, by the way. Travis A says Keith Carter handled this correctly. Hats off. Kiffin can go pound sand. We got a GBO. Best of luck to you in the playoffs, Ole Miss. Thank you. And that hope you have a very good day as well. Got a super chat. Glad Pete is our guy from LMBOJP. Thank you very much. Yeah, Pete has the locker room. And if you look on social media all day, it's been like 99% pro Ole Miss over the course of the day because of what happened. So pretty good. Tam B says, I truly believe we're in good hands. Go Rebs. John Baker says Lane was a coward for not being at the team meeting to talk to players and thank them. Pete Golding is a great choice and hopefully permanent. He is permanent, by the way. Hotty toddy. It's not an interim situation. Yes, I'm Josh. Welcome to the Golding Age. Very good. From Amory. John Doe of 4N. Keith Carter was so good in this situation dealing with a child. I hope he is rewarded with a home game and rings. Yes. It would be nice if Ole Miss went on a run in this college football playoff, won the thing, and whenever everybody gets invited back for the celebrations that will undoubtedly come, even if they make the playoff, there's going to be celebrations. Lane Kiffin's not going to be on that field. It will be Pete Golding. Pete Golding coached the playoff game. So that's pretty good. Saucy says, at least we have money to go get the next big coach next year. There is no next big coach. Pete Golding is going to be the guy. They're going to give him everything. Pretty much everything that Kiffin asked for money-wise, NIL-wise, and all of that stuff, Pete's going to be the recipient of. Dale Beaver says, Lane is an excellent coach, but a dirtbag for a human being. ESPN had better never air that documentary again. I feel bad for Ryan McGee because he's got to eat that documentary. He genuinely does. He has to eat that documentary because it's going to be viewed as what it was. And that was an hour of propaganda to where Ryan McGee was used. And one thing that I'm pretty sure about, people hate being used. And that's what Lane did. Stoney Smith says Kiffin better win big and win now or his name is tarnished. You can't spend it no other way with how this went down. Yeah, it's all of the worst things that you could imagine with Lane Kiffin. Once he decided that he was going, there was nothing stopping it. And this is just my opinion, okay? This is my opinion. Ole Miss had a top 2 roster in the country in 2024. Ole Miss went 9-3 with that roster. Lane Kiffin, instead of looking in what happened, blamed it on Ole Miss that he could not get the players to win, even though the draft says that they were plenty enough to win. And Lane Kiffin at that point started looking for an exit strategy. And when Ole Miss started winning, LSU and Florida became available, and it became a prettiest girl on the ball, and his narcissistic tendencies kind of took over, honestly, if we're going to be real about that. Neil White says if Kiffin had coached during the playoffs, he'd have taken every player with him to LSU. It was the right move to tell him, nope, you cannot have a rival coach of your team coaching your team. They would. You saw in 3 hours today the damage that could be done by Lane Kiffin in the building. Imagine if it was 30 days. You just couldn't risk that. Golding is actually the backbone of recruiting. I agree with that. Sue talks about that. Thank you very much. Yeah, Pete Golding has done so much on the staff already, and now we get to see exactly what him being the head man looks like. Tornado Nathan, we're going to be okay. I hope this pushes this team to fight harder and win the playoffs. They have a team that can do it. They are literally a missed tackle on a 4th and 2 against Georgia away from being undefeated right now and being number 2 in the country or something like that. So they can do it. Rex Thompson says Kiffin chose to turn his back on his football team, the university, and the fans. I would argue that he was never with the fans to begin with, and he was only in it for what could benefit him, honestly. Mary Ronaldin says Kiffin is not a victim. Ole Miss players and fans are the victims. You're absolutely correct. And the admin, by the way. I'm not going to take away what Keith Carter and Glenn Boyce went through over the last 2 weeks. Matt VR, dog fan here. I'm proud of Ole Miss for how they handled this. This isn't any different than Nico trying to extort Tennessee. Hope you guys make it deep in the playoffs. Thank you very much. David Williams, Auburn fan here. Thanks for not sending Kiffin to us. You're welcome for that. That was a moral victory all the way. LSU Mojo, I believe purple and gold. I hate this move. Whiffen did it to y'all, and he'll do it to LSU. I hate the way he did this. Yeah, just look at the way he has left everywhere he has been. It has been messy. It will happen to LSU. It absolutely will. CJ Spencer, I'm an Ole Miss fan, dad, and 5-year season ticket holder from Pennsylvania. I will attend the college football playoff game this year. Lane will be on the clock at LSU, Trinidad and crew, winning the Natty, poetic justice. Yeah, the gif of Tom Berenger from Major League saying there's only one thing left to do, and that is win the whole thing, and that is extremely apt for this situation. J. Ray says Pete's going to be just fine. Go win some playoff games, baby. Yes. Justin Cord from Florida as a Gator. I want to call a truce and align our disdain and our hatred for LSU. Buddy, our hatred for LSU was already there. That was already aligned. At the end of every national anthem, it doesn't matter who Ole Miss is playing. They say, go to hell, LSU. That was already aligned. And Lane knew that, if we're going to be completely honest about it. Super chat in. MJ Jackson says, this is Matthew from Fort Worth, Texas. Pete Golding will also cherish the Ole Miss job and not look at it as a stepping stone. Pete will look to retire from Ole Miss, and it is my prayer that he has all the success in the world. And it's going to be important for Ole Miss fans to give him that success, if we're going to be completely honest about it. All of the stuff that Lane says that Ole Miss can't do, Ole Miss can do it. And I think that if we're going to be honest, what Lane is about to see is something that he's never seen, and that is the petty side of Mississippi. Because whether you admit it or not, Mississippi is one of the more petty places in the entire country. And what I mean by that, I don't mean it negative, because all of the hospitality and everything is great. But once you cross that line into disdain, they will beat you however they need to beat you, just so that you know that they beat you. If you want the NIL to go up, maybe you couldn't get it above 25 million. I guarantee you this would get it to 30 because of the disdain that you caused whenever you said that Ole Miss wasn't good enough. Because make no mistake, that's what you said. Ole Miss was not good enough. And the people of the great state of Mississippi, they're not going to look kindly at that, honestly. The Brad Law Firm fan says, hey, I'm an Auburn fan, but I can pull for Ole Miss again now that Lane is gone. I think that's a lot of people can do that, but thank you very much, Brad. Hadassah Thomas says Lane Kiffin is a good coach, but he has no loyalty. He thinks the grass is greener on the other side. It is not. That is absolutely factual. And somebody says, hey, Steven, huge fan here, watching live from Spain. All right, excellent. Can you confirm who will call plays in the first playoff game, and will we still have a home playoff game, or will they drop us? I think Charlie Weiss Jr. right now, as far as I know, is going to be the guy calling plays, and he will be the sole play caller. I guess he will have input from Joe Judge and those guys, but look for that not to change very much. Will they drop us? I don't think they can with what Keith Carter did, because there's no instability at Ole Miss. At this point, there's just not Lane. And if there's just not Lane, this isn't what they thought the disaster of a coaching search would be when the Jimmy Sexton talking points were being put on everybody. So we'll see exactly how that goes. But I think it will be pretty normal. Super chat from Rock and Rant 1, not an Ole Miss fan, but rooting for you guys. Thank you very much. Man, we got put through it. We got put through it. It says, get rid of that bobblehead behind you. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. See? Oh, no. All right. Ty Talk Live. That's Jake Thomas and everything. Love you, buddy. Happy you are free from Kiffin. The ending of Kiffin is always a difficult place to be. And finally, we'll talk to John Derringer. When Lane came to Oxford, it was possible for one coach to be bigger than program. That is no longer the case in Oxford. College football is a different breed. Hotty toddy. Let's go win a natty. Absolutely. Let's go win a natty. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment to the show. It helps the show and is completely free. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hotty toddy, and finally, analytics can be thrown away. And so can the last line of this podcast. Anyway, take care. We will talk to you tomorrow. Hotty toddy, everybody.